I was at a Starbucks in Northwest Austin meeting a book editor, and a woman is staring at me from the front section of the Starbucks. And in my mind's eye, it's like 200 feet away, but no building is that big for a Starbucks. She's also dressed completely opposite of Austin, and in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Gar. White outfit, turquoise jewelry, never seen anybody dressed like that. She's just sipping her coffee and staring at me the whole time. And that was an angel who's one of my business managers, Charlotte.
With me today is Michael André Ford. Michael, welcome and thanks for coming on the show.
Rod, thanks for having me on. Love your show, and it's a real treat to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. You describe yourself as an angel intuitive. So you help people connect with angels, guides, and passed over loved ones. So can you start off by just sharing a bit about your background and how you first discovered this ability to facilitate those kinds of connections?
Sure. And it's just basic listening, feeling, seeing. So anybody who can just slow down a little gets to do this, and it's direct. So I really try not to tell anybody anything, but it's a video show. It's a show. I got to tell you something here. So I have had a little bit of ability throughout childhood and stuff like that. But it really kicked into gear after a layoff in New York City. I got an hour's notice with 72 other people right after the Lehman crisis. And that was it. The job was gone. I was working at a billion-dollar law firm. I was a public relations guy. I'm really, hopefully, pretty good at public relations. I'd done 1,100 plus media interviews that I personally set up for people. You know, an expert on one side, journalist on the other. The year prior, was making kind of CEO pay, but I was excited because the news meant I could move to Austin, where I'd bought a home, and I didn't know that I'd be using my public relations skills later on with angels, guides, figures from India, you know, your grandmother on one side and you on the other, doing the same sort of matchmaking much later. But it was when I moved to Austin to the home that I started to have some experiences, kind of popped out of thinking with the layoff and some other experiences, kind of a perfect storm, and realized that thinking was thinking and there was something beyond thinking. Um, and in seeing everything, hearing, I grabbed a Sure Shot camera and took photos of angels, fairies, Plato, the philosopher. I used to hand the camera to folks, and nowadays people can just see directly, like maybe out their window in their yard, so they don't freak out. But you can see full on these figures and just have a direct chat. I basically step out of the way.
So you've got some interesting photos. I don't know how well they'll come out on the screen, but it was quite quite fascinating to see those. What made you actually think, oh, I'm going to take a picture now, and because I can see this, or was it that you took the picture and then it later on it showed up and you think, wow, what's that?
Sheer panic. You're seeing balls of light. What do you do with it? And you have to talk to other people who are psychic mediums or have been in the business and ask what's happening. I didn't grow up with any knowledge of any of this. I mean, Oprah was my local Baltimore news broadcaster back in the 70s when I lived in Annapolis, Maryland. But I got lucky. There's a fairy and four archangels, even though they're triangle shapes. You just kind of roll with it. This means something. It's in light energy form. And the bottom line is, so I had really no background. I skipped half my Plato reading during my political science classes back at Middlebury College in Vermont. So I was sort of a leg down, so to speak. And what's kind of cool is if you're just open to this, the universe is really big. The universe kind of already has a plan for you to just acclimate. And I would call this just settling into who you really are. You kind of had it as a kid. Whenever in your memory of your prior part of your life was smooth going, you had a lot of fun. It could have been when you were 5, when you were in high school or uni. That's what I'm talking about. When sort of the world was your oyster. That's what I'm talking about now. Is you can kind of just do a little less thinking and judging and drop into your heart, and then you kind of see a broader relationship with the world and how flows work. Whether you want to call it a flow state, allowing, manifesting is a really popular thing. But there happen to be loving guides, your relatives, all these figures out there that if you do want to pay attention, you can meet them, see them, get direct advice. I think people are kind of already getting influenced, though, right now, indirectly. If you're in the middle of a golf swing, you're in the middle of a tournament, you're in the lead of your local tournament. You're on the 17th hole, and you decide to get pretty cocky. You're about to hit it really hard. Your brain, your intuitive voice says, "Let's smack this and go for a hole in one. Let's just crush it. It's your day." May not be your voice. It may be either your higher self, your grandmother, who's your biggest golf fan, and maybe your guardian angel. It may be Plato. Who knows? But if you actually heard your grandmother's voice, Plato, your guardian angel's voice instead of your own, you might drop that club, flee the country club, and never play another hole of golf again. It would freak you out. So there's something to this that defies our reality up here, but makes sense when you're here.
So when your job finished in the Lehman crisis and this big change, what was the general response from your family and friends about that one?
Well, I mean, I had an empty house in Austin, and so I had to learn to kind of pick up cooking, decorating the walls. I used to think I killed plants. I got a green thumb. I started doing a lot more color around the place. I mean, I had to learn how to live. When you live in a big, big city, it's easy to just do the rinse, repeat, work, rinse, repeat, and kind of go very one dimensional. I mean, I was having fun at the job. I talked to everybody, cab drivers, security, doormen, you name it. But there was still more growth and expansion to be had. Uh, I had two parents pass when I was 2 and when I was turning 23. So my family circle and my friend circle is, a little smaller maybe than normal. But that was a part of my path as well. And now hundreds of people have met and seen my parents, even though they're passed over. They show up in their 20s. And it kind of takes, again, the pressure off of me for if you walk around saying you've got two deceased, relatives, that's pretty heavy. I look at it differently now that they're with me and they're always available. But there's my mom and dad, when I
Oh,
was,
that's so young.
yeah. And he passed when he was just turning 26, I think. He was a few days into being 26. US Navy off of Naples in an F4 Phantom crash. It was his time to go. And she passed when she was just about 44, 45, brain aneurysm. I was just turning 23. It was her time to go. I mean, you kind of have to trust in this. If angels tell you something or they tell you something, maybe it is so.
I guess what I'm digging at is there seems to be there's like a shift in perspective for you that made you open to these experiences that wasn't there before. Was it when your parents passed, or was there something else? I mean, obviously there was the sort of a catalyst with the job change, but I feel like there's something more than that.
Well, I mean, I can give a random example would be, I think it was my sophomore year or freshman year in college in Vermont. I had an internship at this one company, smack middle of Middlebury downtown. I must be like 50 buildings. It would be tiny on any city scale. But I'm in this advertising agency. A guy from the West Coast has started it up. It's a C-shaped office. I'm there for 10 minutes, my first 10 minutes. The last thing you would ever say to an employer is, "Hey, do you guys ever have any ghosts here?" I did that. The whole place stopped. The owner pulls me aside out of earshot and he's like, "Did you see something?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but it just feels like it could you could have ghosts here." And he's like, "We just had an exorcism a week ago. I need to know if you see anything." And later I saw a cat that literally ran into the largest bathroom I've ever known. It must have been something else, but they put a bathroom in there. And so it's like, the size of an office and there's no place to hide. I followed that cat in and there's no cat. And I was like, okay. But at that stage in my life, I just dismissed it as fast as I could, never thought about it again. It would be like playing backgammon and you call doubles before you throw doubles 3 times in a row. I used to do that a lot in high school. And all I can say is there's something about when you're in a flow state, when you shoot pool and run the table, when you read 6 books in a row, you're in the books. Whatever the letting go is, and you're here, artists know it, musicians know it. We all know it, but we give ourselves no credit for it when we're up here. We do too much thinking, worrying, reacting, stress, fear. So whatever that is versus this is kind of what we're talking about. Awareness, limitless, no time, like on the pitch, playing football, soccer. You just feel everything speed up or slow down. You know you're going to get the goal. You're Pele in the moment. So whatever that is kind of what I'm talking about. Everyone knows how to do basic listening, feeling, and seeing. But because we're talking angels, the universe, cosmic beings, your grandmother, you might get a little jittery about it.
So tell us a story about the most interesting phenomena that you observed that's made you think, wow, this that's amazing.
Sure. I mean, I was at a Starbucks in Northwest Austin meeting a book editor for my Glow Sticks Zen book. No one should ever read it. Tremendously long, but beautiful book. And a woman is staring at me from the front section of the Starbucks. And in my mind's eye, it's like 200 feet away, but no building is that big for a Starbucks. And you're supposed to be looking out. That's the people watching section, usually a raised piece of wood. You sit, you look out. She's doing the opposite. She's also dressed completely opposite of Austin. And Austin has a lot of different kind of communities. She's not dressed as a cowboy. She's dressed in Santa Fe, New Mexico garb, white outfit, turquoise jewelry. Never seen anybody dressed like that. She's just sipping her coffee and staring at me the whole time. And that was an angel who's one of my business managers, Charlotte. If you can allow for angels to show up in human form, that's her. And just to give it a little flavor so people don't think it's orbs or circles, there's a silhouette of my guardian angel. And again, the photos just run the gamut. But I guess my point on this is I ask the important questions of angels over time, not who killed Kennedy, but when they're here, do they really drink the coffee? The answer was yes. And I'm going to just mention you can actually see angels out and about town. If someone's gung ho in the audience watching, listening right now, and you're like, hey, why not? I could use a little pick me up, put it to the universe. Ask somebody from your crew to show up. It'll be a sparkly eyed fellow or woman holding the door open for you, saying just what you said at the dinner table the night before or from the movie that you were watching the night before. And you'll probably feel something in that intuitive guidance system, whatever people call it, that's you, that figures out, do you like it? Do you not like it? Angels are a little more available these days than people realize. So it's nice that I've got photos. It's nice that you can see directly. It's nice you could hire somebody to help you. But I'd make the argument that you're already perfectly well endowed to get this done on your own.
So why is it that angels are a little more available these days? Because in my line of work, I talk to a lot of people about angels, but it does seem there's more of those people are talking about angels. What's happening there?
I think just mankind's ready for a little teeny, I know the word shift is a little cliche now, but a little bump up in awareness, consciousness, like actual awareness down here is on the horizon for man. Just means a little less thinking, a little more love, gentleness, kindness. Think of it this way. If people listened more all across the planet, there would definitely be less conflict, whether we're talking the workplace, relationships, or at the country level, and so on. We've got it pretty good. If we would just pump the brakes a little, I think a lot of things would sort themselves out.
So you took me through a practical exercise before we pressed record, but I think it might be interesting for people to see and to try the exercise out for themselves. And I think it translates okay for video. So how about we do that?
Sure. How about I light sage first as sort of a baby step? And if you don't mind sort of an allegory metaphor here, picture 70 baby steps to get from the brain to the heart. Now, for some of us, it's a decade or two. We get shut tight like an oyster, trauma, car wreck, 6 divorces in a row in a 6-month period. We're just really unlucky picking, the wife or the ex-wife. The bottom line is we get locked up tight up here. We think we know something, but it actually precludes possibility. There's a broader knowing or just allowing. It happens when you're in your heart. And that's why I love athletes. I love business people who are open, musicians and artists, because they just kind of get it. But I'll blow some sage and it'll go through 2 screens. And I've done this for other Australian show hosts. I've done this around the globe. You could be watching, your channel in 2028 and still smell it. So it's a lot less time and space than we think. I've only got one bit of like structure or a rule, if you want. That's set your intent at home. And if people don't mind me telling you what it is, it would be, hey, angels, universe, get me out of my head, into my heart. Help me smell some sage smoke that I'm lighting right now. And leave your eyes on this. If you're already kind of hyper intuitive or whatever the word is you like to say for, kind of connecting, you may taste this on your mouth. There's no one way. And if you're also pretty open, as you see the smoke, you can ask for flowers on top. Why settle for just ho hum? Yeah, get sage, but you can get flowers. You could even get an ocean smell. If you're in Australia right now, catch Noosa Beach on the air if you're nowhere near it, if you're over in Perth. Okay, so catch some sage, give yourself permission. I'm going to tell one dad joke to tie up your thinking. Thinking something is the only block to smelling sage, to kicking that ball into the goal, to finishing the last chapter of your book you've stalled on for 2 months. Thinking something is really not giving a hug to the dog. Giving a hug to the dog is actual love. So just catch a little sage, catch a little bit of flowers. Here's the dad joke. Santa's reindeer, Blitzen and Dancer, just those 2. Nobody needs to know who they are. But why do Blitzen and Dancer drink so much coffee? Answer, because they're Santa's, Starbucks. And as Mother Teresa said, laughter's love. When you're laughing, you're letting go. When you're breathing, you're letting go. When you're smiling, you're letting go. There's about 1 million ways to get to here. But last time I checked, there's about 14 million ways to be stuck up here and to avoid the one place we don't want to go. So catch some sage, catch some flowers. Rod, are you already catching a little in the studio there?
Sure.
And
It's not
hey,
sage, it's something else. Like I get a different, it's weird. I get a different smell, but I can't put my finger on what it actually is.
campfire or
Mm.
sandalwood.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Oh, that's
People
weird.
have been getting sandalwood lately. I can't explain it.
Mm.
Hey, so just blame the universe and angels. Don't look at me. And I'll mention it this way. I mean, everything is light. I hate to sound really like kind of cheesy or too cliche, but everything's consciousness. How about that? Your table, your rock, the trees. It's a little easier to believe. Even your house. Obviously, your dog, your pets. I mean, everything has life force to it, if it's easier to say it that way. But you can see that light everywhere, and it gets really wild. Like, I could give a good metaphor. If you just have a best friend, a bloke that you're comfortable with, put your two hands together at a supermarket. Okay. So this is obvious. You can feel each other's heat. You're touching each other's skin. You're like, duh, I know it's real. I'm feeling something. And if you go like this, you still feel the heat because it's pretty close, a couple centimeters. At some point, we hit the thinking wall. When you're like this far apart, you're like, well, I don't know if I'm really feeling it or not. Your brain's getting involved and starting to judge. Your heart's like, no, I actually feel the energy. You can go all the way to one end of a supermarket and the other and feel that vibe, but you got to be kind of cocky about it. And let's throw in the wrench for the whole psyche, the judging, evidence-based science, and everything else. You can see the light flow the whole time. And when you see the light flow and you go that far apart, or you're on the pitch, the soccer field, you're at one end of the goal, one end of the field and the other, and you're seeing the light, and then ask the universe to make a butterfly of light come out of it, or hearts, or something. There's people who have done that. Not a big deal. It sounds like a big deal, but what I'm trying to say is, what does no limits look like to anybody who's listening right now? I mean, maybe if there are no limits in life, there are really no limits. Good luck with that. We all have thinking. We're doing adulting. I know what I know. I'm stuck. My situation is, my problem is, Rod, you don't understand. I'm on my 19th divorce and I got 12 dogs. So there's a lot of reasons we can't for anything. But if you'll kind of remember back or harken back to you being a kid when you were going to climb the tree, become a NASA astronaut, prime minister, you had no limits at one point. You never lost that sort of zest for life, that je ne sais quoi, the joie de vivre. And so the other way to say it is maybe like love's a constant. Love is everywhere. Open your eyes to see love. But if people like the word enthusiasm, creativity, there's a million of those high vibe things. It's got to be your language. And guess what? You're the only person who's, watching out there that can figure any of this out. And so good luck. Like, how's any of us doing in our daily lives lightening up a little more? Put the news on, get stuck in traffic, bad news at work. You get into this with your neighbor. There's a lot of ways to get caught up in the little eddies that kind of mean nothing. And it keeps us from just being a little more love, showing love, being a little more kind. So I would just argue the rat race is really up here. And the big picture is awareness is kind of on the horizon for man. There's certain people who are really groovy, relaxed. The great musician Tame Impala. I have a feeling he's pretty plugged in. I have a feeling Einstein was pretty plugged in. And guess what? You can talk to Einstein, meet Einstein, see him, ask him directly. Don't listen to me.
So tell us a bit more about angels. I kind of think of angels as ethereal beings with wings. And what's your perspective on what they are and what their purpose of it as far as they're interacting with us as humans?
Yes. No, I'm kidding. So yes, but you can see them without wings, with wings. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, all different sorts of backgrounds. Now, I've done this like 12 or 13 years for a few thousand folks. And by the way, if you do this stuff separately, like your own listening, feeling, and seeing, you can do it jointly. So joint seeing, joint hearing. So, I mean, I feel like I'm off the hook, truly. Photos, a few videos of angels. But so here's the catcher, or the catch, or the wrench in the whole thing. After 12 or 13 years, you think you know something. Good luck with that. One angel about a month or two ago, maybe 3 months ago, just said, hey, I've got an Andromedan background, with all the UFO, UAP disclosure talk. And, the cosmos, the universe, whatever you call it, is really big. I kind of suspected. They've always said some of them, they're from really far away, but they're just unconditional love. And from their perspective, they don't want to interfere. You have to ask for the help. So he's from Andromeda. Another angel's from Andromeda. My guardian angel's from Sirius. I'm not trying to be serious, but the Sirius that's out there. And then another one is from Orion. So that has just Thank God I've got 12 years under my belt on this to allow for all that. Had it been 10 years ago, I probably would have run for the hills. It's just, look, all of this is a lot for people, but let's take angels and spirituality and woo 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 and the fact that you might be able to see light or just experience a more little like smoother path, see consciousness. How are people rolling daily? What are we really allowing for daily? Forget, again, spirituality and all this extra stuff, the extra help you could get. I would argue a lot of us are kind of up here and feeling pretty stuck or frustrated or this or that, lower vibration stuff. And we're probably not, like the US Army slogan, being all we could be as it is. So we're still spending our energy and we don't know whether we're doing it out of here or here. And if you could just see that energy, which you can, it's kind of a waste. Like ego is fear, a waste of energy and time. And I'm not knocking it. I'm going to do it like later tonight. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Thinking, unfortunately, is not going away for man, for me, for you. We're all going to do some. So what this is really about, to try to make it sound like the easiest New Year's Eve resolution ever, or New Year's resolution ever, is 7% less thinking daily. I'm quoting an angel on this. And that would just be 7% more love or peace or kindness or gentleness or reading a book or swimming in a pool daily. I don't know what 7% is of 24 hours, but I think it's between an hour and a half, 2 hours and 15 minutes a day. And that's, according to an angel, the Olympic gold medal standard for equals smoother path in life, more wisdom coming in. You sort of just grow into that really relaxed person that everybody just congregates towards at the pool party.
So how do you incorporate that 7% less thinking idea into your life, Michael?
Yeah, it's not do as I say, not as I do. I do running. I've been, if I'm 56, I've been running since I was 14. That seems to be my big thing. Long runs, getting in as many miles. And I never would have thought of this, but an angel said, exercise is also a form of compassion. You don't have to just do the mindfulness practice, the meditation, go read a poetry book or go to an institute or an ashram. Finger painting, hugging your kids, just walking hand in hand with your kids, or taking your dog for a walk barefoot in the grass. Anything to break the structure, the routine, the rinse, repeat, rat race thing, I think counts.
My wife recently just bought a couple of dogs, they're little miniature dash hounds. And I haven't had a dog or a pet for a very long time. And I just got reminded, just holding on to them, it it takes you right out of your head with pets. People often ask, do pets have souls? Are we able to commune with them after they're gone? What's your perspective there?
The Buddha nature question, if we're talking Buddhism, but dogs have and cats have guardian angels. You can meet them on the other side, so you don't have to die to reunite with your pet. You can, I always do a few angels first, if that's okay for folks. If someone's from India, they might be really insistent and they want an Indian figure first, like Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, the one from 100 years ago. Do a few angels. I make sure the person chats with angels to get permission to see the relative or the loved one or the pet, just because I don't feel like it's my place to just assume that's cool. And it can't be your uncle who is a really bad guy who died in an FBI or national police shootout yesterday robbing a bank. You gotta have some space for them to adjust. But again, it's direct. You do the full-on seeing for an angel, Einstein, Jesus, Mary, Muhammad, Buddha, and then you'll see your cousin come in, your mom, and it can be a tearjerker, but usually it's those 75 steps to get from here to here. And it sounds complex, but just blowing sage, smelling sage probably took 5 of those steps. And one act of letting go could get you from here to here, and it's all 75 steps. The reason why I say that is letting go is letting go. Details are details. Thinking is thinking. How do I say it? This is thinking. This is being open down here. And it's the degree of difficulty of flipping a light switch, brushing your teeth, falling asleep at night, turning on that shower and enjoying the shower. Eckhart Tolle said it pretty well. I think Wayne Dyer had his own version of can't be upset taking a nice hot shower. But the quote is, ego implies unawareness, and awareness and ego cannot coexist. So you're either here or you're here. You can't be half pregnant. And guess what? Most of us are up here most of the time. And it's the Casablanca movie when the chief of police walks into the casino and says, I'm shocked to see there's gambling going on here. I mean, there's gambling going on across the whole globe. There's a lot of us doing a lot of thinking. Meanwhile, the waiter's slipping him his gambling winnings and he says, thank you very much. So you can't be shocked. There's some thinking going on. That just means judging. But I'll talk about knowing real quick. Most of our currency among man right now is knowing that precludes possibility. We see it in science. You and I discover something, a new type of resin or plastic. It lasts for 2 weeks, and then Joe and Bob and Susie invented a better resin. We're out of business. Stuff is only for so long, and then there's a greater form of awareness or a greater form of expansion. The growth and expansion doesn't stop. We do kind of Polaroid snapshots with the mind, and we think that's very fixed in reality. It's why if you and I were living next to each other and Bob or Susie 10 houses down was a complete jerk, and you and I agree. We took a survey in the neighborhood. Almost everyone agrees. They're a jerk. Calling them a jerk, if you could just see the energy you generated, it's negativity, you would recoil if you saw that light or the negative light. And so all I'm trying to say is that it's not actually, if you did love instead, you're giving that person a little bit more support to get out of their situation. I don't like to make it sound too direct because they're making their own choices. They're spending their energy, how they're spending it. That's for all of us. Where you put your focus, if I learned like 2 things in 10 or 12 years now, it's where you put your focus is where you put it. How you spend your energy is how you spend it. And love is truly the fabric of the universe. You just have to trust this much more. And you can call it faith, religious, not religious. It's, I just call it letting go to get to here. And again, athletes know it, artists, musicians, and a lot of people out there, but they only know it in a compartmentalized way. If they would just trust that the way they handle their artwork is the way they could handle their relationships, it's all the same. One moment can be like the next. That's kind of the key. So I think we're into a philosophical zone now.
Yeah, that's where I like to be. You mentioned exercise as a way to sort of get from here into here, and I completely agree with you. So it's like a daily thing. Is there any other practical advice you can have for people to sort of get more out of their head into their heart, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, literally, there's so many experts on now giving advice, but a meditation, mindfulness practice, just walking, nature. You'll find yourself, though, meeting your ego a lot. Your ego will tell you, yeah, it's a great idea. Let's go for a walk. 2 hours later, you haven't gotten out the door. One thing after another. So it's really identifying Thich Nhat Hanh, Pieces Every Step, that little teeny book is so chock full of how to generate a reminder practice, a reminder to be mindful, appreciative, allowing, attention, all that other stuff. So it's really just being in the moment and realizing that when you're changing the kitty litter, it's not the end of the world. When you're doing dishes, it's not the end of the world. You put the headphones in for the flowers and you're mowing, and instead of hitting the flowers, you find that if you enjoyed it, mowing the lawn, it goes in half the time and you didn't hit the flower garden. There's something about being here versus here. Once you figure that out, you're off to the races for the rest. You've got a unique life path. The universe will bring it to you indirectly. You can ask for it dream time. You can have lucid dreams. With angels, I should just mention before I maybe show people the light on my hands, the aura chakra thing. You can have like a lucid connection, but I don't really like the description lucid, maybe more interdimensional. India can come to you, Tibet. You just sit like this. And if you've at least met a few angels or a few figures from India or Native American chiefs or whoever, again, they make it nice. And 5 minutes of our time is 10 minutes over there. So it's Nepal, Tibet, India, the Middle East. I love Hawaii because you can go surfing like a professional, but you don't know how to swim. You've never surfed before. Somehow angels make it just really nice. You can also walk the Akashic Records, get a tour. But I'll give you an example. I had 2 show hosts in America, one on the West Coast, one in Florida. So they know each other well, and it's a 3-way Zoom call. And they've met angels, in a frontal assault fashion. They've gotten some answers, felt some hugs, caught some sense maybe, whatever you do to meet angels. And then they shut their eyes. They kind of listen to my voice for just a little bit. They go to Hawaii. They meet a few more angels who are their tour guides, their surf guides. When they went surfing in their own realities, they got to see each other on, the wave over and wave high. Wild. And at Omega Institute during my 3-day event, there were 2 women who came into the, a workshop, a program. They already knew each other. There was a third who was kind of their vibe, like late 20s, high vibe. All three, when they're sitting there doing this, they got to see each other. So not really lucid dream, more interdimensional. Again, 5 minutes of our time's 10 minutes over there. And what's wild is people just get what they need. I just make sure you come back. I don't think there's anything dangerous about it. It's just love. Um, but that's what people talk about sometimes with the OBE thing, the out of body experience, the near death experience. For near death experience people, I don't want to make this sound anything but what I'm trying to say is there's sometimes a very high point of the near death experience, a beautiful experience where you're seeing some of your cheerleaders, or you're on a beautiful mountaintop. You can have that experience again, just the high end. You don't have to go through the death part, the surgery part, the this part, that part. You can just ask for that and have it sort of recreated for you. A lot of times we get very sensitive about that, though. So it's just much easier going to Tibet or going to, Tibet and meeting up with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. A few of his students from the 70s got to reunite with him. A few people who have met Mother Teresa have gotten to reunite with her. I've got a Swede who gave a beautiful testimonial who adopted 2 infants or babies from her. She went to India in 1997, met Mother Teresa, got to do this. I think it was around 2020. It's up on my website or on my YouTube channel. So when she got to meet again Mother Teresa, she burst into tears. But it was deep. It was moving. It was loving. And there are a lot of people on the planet, not a lot, but there's a little portion of people today that like doubt Mother Teresa's authenticity. I would argue, if you're meeting anybody on the other side, they're reconciled, they're unconditional love. You don't have to fear, doubt, or worry. It's just they can handle their own, and they can handle their own reputation.
Awesome. You've got something more practical for us to play with.
Yes. I'll show my light on my hands for folks at home. Just again, take it easy, take a deep breath, shake your hands like you're finger painting, but you're not actually spraying paint everywhere. Do the only setting the intent thing again. Just, hey, angels, get me out of my head into my heart. Help me see with my heart a little bit of light on Michael's fingers. It's out of the movie Celestine Prophecy that they do it this way with the fingers straight, although some people have said in the 70s they also did it that way. In India, they do it this way. I'm standing up, so it's kind of a pain to do it this way. Give yourself a break, breathe through your mouth, open your mouth a few millimeters. And again, one more dad joke. Where in a hospital is the worst place to play hide and seek? In the ICU. And just see a little filament of light between my fingers. Is it white, gold, green, yellow, 5 colors at once? What do you see, Rod?
It's the same white one for me.
Cool. I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. Be sure to play this back and be sure to watch this show 2 or 3 times in a row to boost his analytics. But also, it's the vibe, not what I'm saying. I'm going to mention it's the Hindu chakras. So, I can never get it exactly right. I think it's like red, yellow, orange, green for the heart. I got that. Blue, purple.
It's the rainbow.
Yeah, and then the white is all the colors combined. So it's actually a big deal. But the rainbow light, if you've got rainbow light and you've only been running 5 kilometers a day on your run, you've been thinking about doing 10, it's time to do the 10. Imagine what angels are like as coaches. They just know when you're going to get injured and you shouldn't push it. They also know when you're sandbagging. Maybe it's lifting at the gym. You're sandbagging. You're only doing half the weight that day and you could handle more. They make the best athletic coaches. Imagine what they can do for your relationships, for your business. Are you willing to listen? Most of us, we're off to the la lands of daily routine. So we're not really paying attention. It's why we have all the health crises, trauma. This has to happen to us to get us to pay attention more in life. And I'm shocked.
Now, because you mentioned your age, Michael, and I have a very high interest in health, it's clearly you are doing something right because a lot of people would like to look the same as you at your age. So, give us a little rundown on some daily practices that you have that is part of your vibrant health there.
It's I've always looked young. So like, hey, when I was getting out of college, trying to get a first job, it was tough. I worked on Wall Street for a couple of years and I must have been about 23, 24, just after my mom passed, but I looked like I was 14. I had a great phone voice, but every client I met in the conference room, they'd never do business with me again. I was selling stock ideas to portfolio managers, and they just they couldn't take advice from someone that looked that young. So I got out of that, did public relations the rest of my day, where the horsepower up here was all that mattered. I was super creative. I used to put people on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, on CNN, back when the media was sort of normal, Financial Times, New York Times, and just absolutely loved the creativity of matchmaking there. But somehow this came along. It's the exact skill of matchmaking. But remember, we're all reticent somehow. It's like a New Year's resolution, whether it's exercise or I'm going to go finally take a vacation I've held off for 5 years. It's just called living more, allowing more, loving more. It's the scariest thing in the world because we've all found a way to retreat from the one place, the only place you can go. And I think it's Seth, that new age. You can meet Seth, a light being, but the Jane Roberts Seth books in the 1970s, but also Peaceful Warrior, the movie with Nick Nolte, Amy Smart, or the book Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and even The Alchemist, or it's Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks, talks about the only place that any of this can be found is here. And that's why artists have discovered it. Athletes are trusting their heart to just do performance on the field or wherever on the balance beam. So it's the only place you can go. It's not going to be found externally. I mean, I still say go to Machu Picchu, do the ashram if you have to in India, although you could close your eyes and have the India come to you. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, and I'm going to quote out a little book called Listening to Angels. I didn't write it. If anybody thinks that I did, I mean, I typed, but I saw balls of light as I was writing it. It's kind of like the classic treasure hunt with X marks the spot. But instead of like an external treasure, it's here. You get to find yourself. So you just get to pay attention more and rediscover the you that never went away. So that's what this is about. And as for good health and all the rest, I mean, yeah, it's probably the running.
All right. So tell us everything you've got going on, programs, books, anything, just so that people know the ways they can get in touch with you if they want to and learn more about what you do.
Sure. There's a YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/ Michael André Ford, or C/Michael André Ford. But I've got a show that's not so new now. It's just over a year old, 50 episodes last year, called Angels, Positivity, and Love. And I'd love to have you as a guest this December in 2024. But I've jumped it to 3 shows a week airing June 1st. And I'm already booked into December. And most of those shows will be complete by July 1st. So that's pretty exciting. It's some really big names for a small show. We got Rod Bland maybe coming in December, if you know him. And then I'd just like to mention Listening to Angels. It was a number 2 Amazon bestseller. I don't think anyone's ever gotten to claim twice it's been a number 2 bestseller, endorsed by Anita Moorjani, that 3 times New York Times bestseller and near-death experiencer. But it's a beautiful little book, 15-minute read. It's got photos of angels. It's your best bet if you wanted to skip me and just check things out. It's probably $7.99 these days. And my Amazon author profile is easy. It's just amazon.com/author/angels. And an angel named Charlotte told me to pick that moniker. And I was like, no way the word angels is going to be available. It was. I grabbed it.
Yeah.
So
you got lucky. Well done. All right. We'll put all that in the show notes for you anyway, so that people know how to get in touch with you. Anything final that you'd like to leave people with who are watching this video? I might have actually just, skipped to the end.
Yeah, no, this is so simple. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm literally, people think it's a big deal, and it is a big deal when you go through it and you have your first few experiences. You freak out and you get over it at some point. It's like driving a car. There's a point when you're 13, 14, 15, whenever it is, wherever you live, it depends. You're so excited about driving the car, but maybe you had trepidation too. Now flash forward to when you're 25, 30, 35. Do you even care? You touch the keys, you're stuck in traffic, you're complaining about this, complaining about that. A few people are enjoying the eagle flying by or the Cara and appreciating life regardless of how bad the traffic is. That's a great metaphor for what this is about. But I would also just say you don't have to know anything. You don't have to have some sort of philosophical, religious, or other type of thinking. It's just not about more thinking. It's about a little less thinking. So just trust that angels exist. Your answers and more will come. And if you are kind of shy about this, ask for like nighttime, dream time. I don't mean like visitation, so you freak out, but just like a pleasant dream where you're like, there might be something to this. And then ask for some signs. I mean, that's probably the easiest way to go if you're really shy. But you can go full on direct, get answers for anything. And it's not just all languages and dialects. It's also just the way you need to hear it, your personality. And imagine that. There's 8 billion of us on the planet. That's a lot of navigating, a lot of personalities and thought forms to deliver a message.
Michael, it's been my pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks for being a guest on my show.
Thank you very much, Rod.